All right, I think we are live. Yes, welcome everyone to another Wellington Product Tank event. Big thanks to Sharesies for hosting us here. Really appreciate the hours that you're putting in the evening. And a big thanks to John and Will for sharing their stories as well. Next slide. Will this work? Yes. I won't take too much to talk about this, but this product tank is actually a worldwide community, and it's run by Mind the Product organization. It's been around since 2010, and today is actually the birthday for Mind the Product and Product Tank. It all started in 2010 in a London pub with a few product people getting together and talking about the most exciting thing, how to do product management well. So yeah, today is also World Product Day to celebrate that. Let's talk very briefly about both of our amazing speakers before I hand it to them. Firstly, John. He was the first product manager at Sharesies. He now leads Sharesies payment product, shaping how the platform evolved from investing into everyday money. He also led the development of features like US Shares, Save, and now Sharesies debit card. John has an incredible track record of designing trusted experiences, no pressure, that helps people feel confident with their money. And prior to that, he was at Xero and Kiwi Bank and was leading product teams there as well. And Will is the product lead for superannuations and funds. He played a critical role in scaling Sharesies from a simple investing app into a full financial platform. And currently he's working on the KiwiSaver offering, while emphasizing technology, user experience, and regulatory compliance. A good, fun three mix to have, I'm sure. He was telling me about a spreadsheet that kept him awake yesterday.
Hey.
His previous experience also includes working for a bookmaker, Betfair, and Paddy Power. So give them both a warm welcome, and yeah, welcome to the stage.
Cool. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming and welcome to Sharesies HQ. As you've heard, this is John, I'm Will, and we're stoked to be hosting Product Tank for the first time, and really keen to tell the story about how Sharesies has evolved from a share investing app into a broader wealth platform, and also what we've learned along the way whilst trying to build purpose-led products that in a high trust and regulated space like money. So today's talk, we're going to be sort of breaking it down into three parts. First, John's going to be taking you through sort of the Sharesies early days, which is well before I was here. Then I'll be taking a bit of an in-depth tour of our build of KiwiSaver and the decisions we've made along the way there. And then finally, John will bring us home by talking a little bit about our next major product, Spend. Over to you, John.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so from a single product to a wealth app. So this is what Sharesies used to look like, believe it or not. Can I get a show of hands? How many Sharesies customers in the room? Great answer. Keep your hand up if you had this app experience. Nice, very cool. Gold stars for all of you. So the title of this talk is More Than Shares, and there's sort of, in the way that I like to do things, I like to hide little meanings and little things. So More Than Shares means kind of two things. More Than Shares means it's not just a share investing platform, but it also means what we're really after is building for financial empowerment. So that's the hidden meaning there. But for us to get to what I'm talking about, we have to go way back, way back to the year 2017. Imagine what you were doing then. 8 years ago, the word COVID wasn't even in the lexicon. Think about that. And there was a plucky young app which launched, and it looked like that. Does anyone remember the koala? I'm seeing some nods at the back. That's a good one. So I briefly mentioned it, but we didn't used to have the icon for the fund manager or the company. We used to have literally these sort of pictures or images or whatever, and the Australian top 20 was the koala. And people were gutted when we nixed the koala. So at launch, the product was very deliberately simple. We had 6 managed funds. We had fractional ownership, so you could invest in dollar amounts, which was really important because people didn't understand a unit and a fund costs X dollars, and that means I had to put in da 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 da. It was just like I'm slinging in $20. So that was a much easier concept to get across to people. And you can invest from 1 cent. So if you put in $20, if the unit price or the share price was $19.99, you would get 1 unit or 1 share plus a tiny little bit. And yeah, you didn't have to worry about all the overhead of figuring those things out. That was important. The other important part was breaking down jargon and demystifying investing. It was something that was not seen as something you could do with $50, let alone 1 cent. And there was this relentless focus on making investing feel good. And I'll share a wee story there, which is not my story. It's actually Sonia's story. So Sonia is one of our co-founders, co-CEOs. Some of you, if you've been on the app for a while, will remember this person. So the story goes, so Sonia was doing some customer testing, and she was talking to a bunch of customers that day. The product was about to launch, and she was asking them, so somebody had gone through, each of these customers had gone through and made their first purchase, and she was asking them, how do you feel about what you've just done? And there was this sense of like, I don't really understand, I don't really know, I don't get what's going on, I don't feel confident. And her takeaway from that was like, okay, oh, bugger, we've built like this quite hard to do thing. It's investing from 1 cent, doesn't exist. We've done all the stuff, and people still don't feel super confident about what they're doing. And what she realized was more about a feeling that people had once they'd placed that order. And she worked with, at that time, Ben, who was the designer, and they came up with this idea of like, what if we could show, visually, graphically, the order going to the market, and we have some sort of iconography around that. And that's what this is. This is a basket of stuff being taken to market by this person. And the difference between people's confidence and that subtle change, instead of saying order received, here's some details, and this was night and day. And in that particular context where people weren't used to doing investing, they weren't used to investing with shares, this was like fundamental. It was, it might seem simple now, but it's a really important part of our history. And the 6 managed funds, it wasn't everything, but it was the right thing. And it was a super simple expression of exactly what Sharesies was about then and continues to be about. And this is our purpose here, to create financial empowerment for everyone. And you can imagine, you can see how Sonia was not satisfied with that idea that people didn't feel confident after they'd placed their order. This simple animation turned people's perception from, I don't feel confident, I don't know what I'm doing, to I feel good about what I've just done. And that is a tangible example of financial empowerment for everyone. This is our purpose now, has been true for the last 8 years, will continue to be true for many, many, many more years, I'm sure. But moving on from that, we knew from the start, the founders knew that if they wanted to achieve the purpose, the product would need to grow. Because 6 managed funds does not financial empowerment make. So we followed the opportunities where we believed we could have the most meaningful impact. So just talking about this for a second. So the first thing that we did was we added the NZX. It was logical to start at home. The next thing was adding the US markets. That gave all of our customers access to the world's biggest market. So it's bringing the opportunity to our customers instead of them having to go and seek it out. And then the ASX. And there's heaps of reasons for ASX. They're great mates across the ditch. We're imminently about to launch in Australia as well. So heaps of good reasons there. And this grew our offering from 6 funds to a little bit over 10,000 investment options. which was great because people had a world of opportunity and a world of choice that they never had before. But it also represented a real problem. The problem was too much choice. How do I manage 10,000? And this is still one of the key critical things that we get from people. I was at lunch today talking with someone who's not at Sharesies, and her insight was, I have an account, I have money ready to go, just tell me what to do. And we went, I'm not allowed to because I'm not a financial advisor. But that's a common refrain, right? So there's a bunch of different stuff that we do in order to try to bridge this gap. One of the things is we have this AI filtering tool for investments. So you give it a problem like, what's the next big EV manufacturer? Any kind, you know how LLMs work. You give it a prompt and it gives you back a list of like, here's my thesis and here's the investments that match that thesis, which is pretty cool. We invest a lot into education. I think this will be a problem that we continue to work on time and time again. But beside that point, this was one tangible thing that we did. So this is a feature that we launched called the watch list. Now, I want to describe something. This is a lesson I've had to learn 3 times in my life. I'm not a fast learner. But have any of you ever had a feature, customers asked for it, you go, great, seems easy, let's do it. And then you work with people and the feature becomes complicated, becomes hard to implement, and I'm seeing a lot of nodding, becomes hard to implement, and you go, bugger that, sorry, I probably shouldn't say that, but bugger that, I'm on live stream, bugger that, we're not doing it, the cost to execute this like quite simple thing has gone through the roof, let's not spend 2 sprints doing it. And then inevitably, like a month later, you start getting customer requests for that same feature again, and you go, bugger, again. And then you go through this cycle. And I think I've managed to go through that cycle fewer and fewer times each time I've learned this lesson. I think my first one was probably about 6 cycles. This is totals and internet banking. Anna remembers that. The second time I learned it was copy 2 on invoicing at 0, if anybody is familiar with that feature. And the third time was this. And I think the eureka moment for me with this, and this is a sure reason to absorb this learning, is I was on the phone with a guy named Callum, and he works at Aura now. He's a product manager, I think. And he was working here at the time. And he said, John, there's 10,000 customers. At the time, I think we had maybe 200,000 customers. John, there's 10,000 customers who have bought 1 cent in a bunch of different equities. And I went, I used an expletive. I won't use it on the live stream, but I used an expletive on the call there and then. And I was on a video call, so people around me were like, Jesus, John, don't do that. But it's the reason why I want to talk about that is if people are, finding their own workarounds inside of your product to create a feature for themselves. So I might explain what the 1 cent did. So buying 1 cent, put it on your portfolio page, which allowed you to track how the investment was performing over time, right? So you were watch listing by buying 1 cent. So if people are doing like this janky workaround to make your features, to create features inside your product, that's a really good example of like, you should definitely do that feature, and as long as it's at least better than what they're doing, then it's golden. It's going to get well used. And that was a real, like, hopefully I will never learn that lesson again. But that was a real learning moment for me to go, you know what? I only have to make this not cost 1 cent. That's all I have to do. I just have to let people tick a button, show up on the page, good. And that's exactly what we did, and that's what happened here. So that's another example. This is the glory slide. Sorry. But this is over the last, the 8 years that Sharesies has been around. We've grown from, I mentioned the sort of When I started, it was about 5.5 years ago, it was about 33,000 customers. We're now 800,000, about 100K in Australia, 700K in New Zealand. We work with 600 plus companies, $8 billion in assets under management. And about 67% of our customers are under 40. Myself still included for a very short period of time. And what I'm sort of talking about is a bit of the history lesson, a bit of sharing some of the war stories, but we'd built up that offering for investing, saving, protection, and business, which I won't get into today, but happy to chat about. We were already working on what is probably the single biggest financial investment anyone will make beyond their home. And for that reason, I want to welcome Will to the stage.
Thanks, John. Yes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Sharesies KiwiSaver in particular and the kind of role it's played in terms of growing the surface area. So when I first started I thought it was 2022, I think it's year 2021. Investing was the starting point, but the plan for Sharesies was always to grow the surface area beyond investing in order to achieve that purpose that we've talked about of financial empowerment for everyone. And reimagining retirement was an obvious starting point. And there was this great story when I first started that the founders told about some of the customer research they were doing at the time. And they're standing in a room, probably not dissimilar to this one. I don't think this is going to work because I saw everyone put their hands up as Sharesies customers, but they would ask these room of customers like you, how many people here would consider themselves an investor? Put your hand up. Cool. And then they'd ask that same group, how many people have got a KiwiSaver account? Yeah, it didn't work as well as it probably did 7 years ago. But the point is that at the time, they would ask that question and they'd sort of get crickets, a lot of people looking down at their feet sort of thing. And then they'd ask the KiwiSaver and a room full of hands would go up. Well, why is that? And there was this disconnect between investing and KiwiSaver. So it allowed Reimagining Retirement was an obvious starting point as a result because it allowed us to engage with customers that were already sort of established or had some sort of connection in that area, while also allowing us to have a positive impact on those two key investments for most New Zealanders being first homes and retirement. So from reinvesting to reimagining retirement, well, we could have just rolled straight out of the door and just gone with a stock standard growth balanced conservative 3-choice model. But instead, what we saw was a bit of a gap in the market that was also supported by successful products internationally in terms of self-directed and self-managed superannuation schemes. So traditionally, the KiwiSaver model is one fund serving many customers. Often, customers need to pick one fund, regardless of whether it's a perfect fit or not. They use the example of you're looking for a size 9.5 shoe and they've only got a 10. It doesn't quite fit, but you probably walk out for it because it's close enough and gets the job done. With KiwiSaver, what we wanted to do was we wanted to take this idea and flip it on its head and provide a KiwiSaver scheme that allowed one customer to be served by many funds. And we wanted to do this in a way where we allow customers to invest into a range of individual companies and funds that mattered to them at scale. The goal was to take this innovative idea and turn it into a tangible product. So what is this? What is Sharesies KiwiSaver? For those that aren't aware, because maybe you're not everyone else has been living and breathing for the last few years. But basically, we were one of the first KiwiSaver providers to create the self-select product or this proposition where members can choose from a range of individual companies and funds. We started with 100 NZX listed individual companies and funds, and we had a range of base funds. We were the first to deliver it in this sort of fund wrap model that we've got, which allows us to fractionalize high value assets. It allows us to offer it as a pie fund, which has some sort of tax benefits as well. And we're also able to offer a range of automated risk management tools, which meant that we weren't necessarily needing to employ a whole raft of financial advisors to help drive appropriate diversification and risk management and volatility and managing volatility at scale. And I was recently talking to a customer about the product, and they used this great term of the forgotten generation. And what they were referring to were people that weren't able to buy their first homes as early in life for some people, so it's sort of 30s, 40s buying their first home, that effectively zeroed their KiwiSaver balances in order to achieve that outcome, and then had a much shorter timeline to be able to invest to get to an appropriate level of savings or retirement savings that would work for them. And what they were seeing was this gap of I can only invest in growth, balanced, conservative. Admittedly, there are obviously more aggressive funds, etc. But what the point she was trying to make was there's this sort of growing cohort of customers that had a shorter time frame and were looking for different investment options for their KiwiSaver outside of the stock standard. So that's what we were looking to achieve. So we had this idea, but how do we then connect that idea to the purpose? So while KiwiSaver is an investment, the behaviours and emotions attached to it are slightly different to investing. Sort of what John was touching on. With KiwiSaver and retirement, it's a long-term investment that isn't often as tangible. You don't necessarily use it daily as you might with an investing platform. So we had to rethink a little bit what that product strategy looked like and how we could deliver confidence and connection to something that's often quite intangible. So our product strategy started to come to life. Control, connection, and confidence, all laddering up to that overall purpose of creating financial empowerment for everyone. We wanted to provide more control over how individuals' KiwiSaver accounts were invested. We wanted to provide greater connection and easier connection to something that could often be quite intangible. And we wanted to build more confident members and investors through providing up-to-date and relevant information, pulling aside the curtain that had often been put up in front of some of the more traditional models. Principles and practice. So we've got an innovative idea, we've got a product strategy that ladders up to the purpose, but how do we turn that into a tangible product? Well, the short answer is a lot of hard work from the product team and supporting players. But more importantly, what kind of frameworks did we use and concepts did we use to focus that effort at the right time to get the results we wanted? Last year we had 2 new developers come into the team. I'll take a little side quest here. And I was having a bit of a meet and greet with one of them, and he asked me this question. He asked me how I would characterize my style as a product lead, which actually blew me away. I wasn't expecting that question. It was a great question. Thoughtfulness of it surprised me. And the two concepts that came to mind, initially I didn't have an answer. I was sort of shocked. I was like, oh, great question. But the two concepts that came to mind was one, this model of usability, viability, and feasibility. And the other one is this iterative delivery principles, which I'll talk to in a minute. And both of them certainly come through me and certainly within the team. They're sort of things that we apply day to day. So I'm sure most people are familiar with this kind of model. Usable, is it usable? Can customers use it? Do they understand it? Do they love it? That's really important to us. Is it viable? Very important in the KiwiSaver world. Is it good for the business? Is it within regulatory constraints? And also, is it creating value for the customers? Because if it's not creating value for customers, what are we doing? And ultimately, is it feasible? So can we build it? Can we deliver it with the people, the time, and the resources that we have? And I really like this model because it's, one, useful for me to be able to tell people like my mum and grandma actually what I do. And two, it does help me focus my attention on the right risk areas at the right time, more so in the viability space. And then it also makes sure that we surround ourselves, or I surround myself with people that are experts in particular, the usability and the technology spaces, and now design lead, tech lead, and developers. And that kind of concept, principle, which I've been carrying around in my head for the last 10 years, does align closely with another 3 C's that we use within the superannuation funds. Call ourselves the super funds team. It's something Owen came up with a tech lead. Anyway, KiwiSaver, as we know, is a highly regulated area. So we do need to ensure that compliance is equally considered in the design and delivery of product. I was talking earlier, previously when I was working over in the UK for Petty Power Betfair, we really focused on delivering products that our customers wanted, and we didn't necessarily need to worry as much about the compliance side of things. There weren't as many rules. There were some. We had to put an R18 logo on every single page and links to various things, but we had a specific team to look after, and we were basically unshackled to go and do whatever we wanted that was good for the customer and good for the business. And we didn't give quite as much thought, but certainly in the last 3.5 years, this balanced triangle has certainly come into play, has necessarily needed to come into play in our day-to-day thinking about how we design and build product. A great example of this model is the airline self-service kiosk. So before those were introduced at airports, it was probably inconceivable to people that they could get on a flight with not having to line up for 45 minutes to an hour before getting on the flight. But since they were introduced, it's a great example of how it's faster for now for customers to do the job they actually want to do, which is take the flight, not line up. It's cheaper to let technology complete that repeatable task. And compliance, it's allowed an increase in compliance with customers actually understanding what they need to do, rather than trying to understand, what do I do with my drink bottle? Do I need to bin my coffee? Where's my toothpaste? Do I need to take out my bag? I still struggle with that sometimes, to be honest. So how do we apply this model in the Sharesies context to unearth that value that might have been incomprehensible to people 5-10 years ago? Customer. We very much want to challenge this long-standing narrative of set and forget by providing a lovable experience that encourages people to engage regularly and appropriately, take more control over how their money is invested so that in a way that matters to them, and demystifying the assumption that KiwiSaver is just another savings account at Kiwibank. Sorry if anyone here is from Kiwibank. And I guess the main thing there is to use that analogy of, you don't necessarily learn to play a guitar by picking it up once a year. Equally, you don't necessarily get the best outcomes from a KiwiSaver account by looking at an annual statement once a year that is already 6 months out of date. So what we want to do was provide an opportunity or an experience that allow customers to really engage and really understand how their money was working for them to provide the outcomes that they want later in life. Cost. So we wanted to design the self-select propositions I talked about in a scalable way, in a way that doesn't necessarily price people out. John talked earlier about people being priced out of the market and being out-jargoned out of the market. So we wanted to make sure we could do it in a way that was accessible to everybody, without needing to have an army of financial advisors or fund managers driving up costs. And compliance. We needed to think about our features across the full stack. So platform, front end, operations tooling, monitoring, and alerting. So we build compliance in from the ground up, meaning that that's baked in from the start, both for us to protect ourselves and to protect the customers of our product. And then iterative delivery. So I want to touch on this again, because this is another one that's really showing through as we've delivered the product over the last few years. And to quote, I think it's Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want, but you might just get what you need. That's something that continues to ring in my mind anytime we approach a new feature, anytime we approach a new part of the product, and how we're thinking about the design and delivery of that. So we didn't set out to build everything at once. We applied iterative delivery principles to build the outline or the still thread that allowed us to get to our product MVP. We built expecting to change as we went, and anytime we ran into complexity, if we could defer it because it didn't help us solve the problem right now, we would, acknowledging that there would be change that we would need to manage in the future. And we built out this foundational capability that continued to gradually move us towards our larger vision, which is still our larger vision. And from a customer-facing perspective, well, what did that mean? We were able to deliver parts of the product iteratively and learn as we went. So we did start with literally 5 base funds across a range of different investing styles. This was our external beta. I think we had some early customers from our waitlist that we invited on. And the most common thing we heard was, cool, love it. It's great. It's good that it's in the app. I can see it all in one place, but I want self-select. Cool, it's going. So we then added 90 NZX self-select options. So this was our public launch. This was in November 2022, I want to say. And the overwhelming thing we heard there was, cool, this is great. Well, they did say we want US too, but I'll put that aside. It doesn't work for my story. They said we want more access. We want to be able to combine base funds in a multiple base fund way. And we want to have some stronger reputational fund managers on. Cool. We were already talking to Milford. Milford became one of our investment options on the platform, and we changed how the product worked so that you could basically, we thought initially that people would just want to pick one base fund and then put a bunch of companies on top, sort of like a foundational layer, and then add stuff on top. And actually what people wanted to do was combine things in a multi-dimensional way. So I want to have a bit of Milford, I want to have a bit of Smartshares, I want to have a bit of Pathfinder, and I want to have my 20 companies on top. And it seemed like an unnecessary constraint. At the time, I think it was a great decision, but it turns out that actually it wasn't, and it was more of a constraint. So we fixed that, and we allowed people to have multiple base funds, as well as adding another top performing fund manager to the platform. And then people were telling us, this is great, but there are other providers, other competitors that have more competitive pricing. Simplicity's funds and Kernel's funds in particular are about 25 basis points. The cheapest you've got is 50. Cool. So we've added the US 500 fund recently, which is our lowest annual fund charge of 0.09% and allows us to have a conversation with customers that are in that price sensitive cohort. Previously, it was very hard to talk to them. They were like, I want to come on. I love the experience. I love Sharesies, but you just can't compete at that price. Fair enough. So we've added that. And now we're leveraging those foundations to release the 60 US self-select options. That's what we're working on next. Hoping to have them available next month. Next week. Yeah. And this is going to give people more access to the top, or the most popular US investments. And we've always known that was that's part of our larger vision. And in fact, that was sort of the first starting point of what we thought our kind of first full proposition was going to be. So it's exciting to be this close to it, weeks. So these approaches have allowed us to iteratively build out the product, managing risk as we go, consider the dimensions of customer cost and compliance in all aspects of design and delivery, and connect our product strategy back up to our purpose to make sure that we completely understand our role in building Sharesies, building out the wider Sharesies wealth app and expanding that surface area. And along the way, was it the vanity metrics? We've managed to double our member base and funds under management annually since we launched. So hopefully we're doing something right. And the best thing about it all is we are just getting started. I'll finish with one quick story. Was talking to another customer the other day, and he sent me this big, long email about all the limitations of our product, which as product leads sometimes can be a bit confronting to read, getting a bit sensitive about it all. But what he'd actually done is quite accurately described our roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months, which is fantastic. All he'd done, what he'd done is basically highlighted all of the things that we already know about, and we are iteratively building out towards. It's just that we've chosen to start with some of the bigger, more foundational pieces that allow us to deliver more features that clearly what customers want, which is, so it was a good outcome in the end. But yeah, I'll pass back now to John, who's going to talk a little bit more about what's next for Sharesies.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for bearing your soul. And I can tell your tech lead's not here because you gave a date out.
Well, I just copying Matt.
Matt was nodding. Yeah, nice. Love it. Okay. Sorry, this clicker's, oh man, this clicker's really delayed. Okay, so far we're focused on growing Sharesies as a place where people build their wealth, whether that's through investing, saving, or more long-term planning like KiwiSaver. But what's next? What's the most obvious missing piece of the financial empowerment puzzle?
Payment.
Payments. Yes, thank you. Gold star.
Thanks.
You can have a beer.
It's fine.
Payments. Okay. Spending, of course. So we've been asking ourselves, what relationship does spending have to financial empowerment? Because, of course, you don't accumulate wealth so that you can be a dragon and sit atop a mound of gold. You accumulate wealth so that you have options, you have choices, you can make decisions in your life. And at some point, you are going to use it. In fact, most of your money you use. So we've been thinking really hard about what's that relationship that spending has to financial empowerment, what is the relationship it has to wealth. Spending is a part of everyone's financial lives that they interact with probably the most often for most people, and also I would argue the most invisible. So it's so easy to tap something, not think about it. It's more about like, oh, I want to have coffee, or I want to have lunch, or I want to have whatever. It's more about that than it is about like, how is this going to affect my future self? How is this going to affect my wealth? Is this purchase meaningful to me? Because I wouldn't say that this is all about like, oh, everybody needs to cut back on everything. Exactly the opposite. It's more about like, how aligned is your spending with you as a person? So I'm going to turn to this diagram, which Nicola, please raise your hand. Nicola, our wonderful design lead in the payments team, created. I'll talk through this a wee bit, but I'll come back to expense. But income, I think about these levers. These are the levers to wealth. Income is something you have some level of control over. You can get a new job, you can get promoted, you can start a business, but there's nothing guaranteed in there, right? Time you have no control over. Only the most conscientious of young people realize that they have this enormous advantage of time and start investing early and end up reaping the rewards. Or the, you know, if you're on Sharesies and you have kids like me, you do it for them early. So that's the way that you can sort of hack time, but we don't control that, unless anybody here has a secret to controlling time. Space-time? No? Not yet. Okay, good answer. Target, everybody can control their target, but I think if I did a poll, I think 100 out of 100 people would say, I want to have fairly comfortable living standards. I want to have choices about what I do in the future. I wouldn't want to be, I'm very happy to spend every last cent and live destitute in my retirement. So we have some level of control, but sort of not really. Expense. Expense is the one lever that we all have control over. And I mentioned before, it's not so much about foregoing the coffee. It's like being a bit more mindful about what does that coffee mean to you. That coffee might be, $5. It's time that you're spending with a friend. It's 45 minutes in your week, and it's way cheaper than a therapy session. Or it might be, a video. My first purchase, when we're in the middle of rolling this out internally. My first purchase was a video game. It's like $120, but I've spent 150 hours on that video game, so that's like pretty good value for money for me. So it's aligned to me, right? So it's not so much about how much you're spending, it's more about being mindful about how you're spending. And we think that's really where we can have an impact. That's really how we give people financial empowerment, because of course it's meaningful decisions. That's what empowerment is about, is I know what I want to do, I know why I want to do it, all in a very seamless, not having to think super duper hard about it kind of way. I want to say this up front because I know I'll get this question in the Q&A anyway. We're not doing this to become a bank. In fact, that was one of the first questions we got asked, or Leighton got asked, when this news broke in December last year, I think it was. We're building it because we see a real opportunity to help people bring clarity, confidence, and alignment to their spending. What we're aiming for is a seamless connection between investing, saving, and spending, an experience that makes your spending feel a lot more intentional, like I was saying, insights and actions that connect who you are as a consumer with who you are as an investor, because those are ultimately the same person. We want people to feel like their money is working with them and growing with them, and that's going to be a big challenge. And we know we're not the only ones in the space. We've got Booster in the room as well, wonderful product savvy, taking a lot of inspiration from the work you've done. Thank you. What's the Pablo Picasso quote? Good artists borrow, great artists steal. That kind of thing. Is it Picasso? I'm looking at Nicola. Nicola knows these things. It is. Okay. We're trying to build a different kind of experience, one that's built on a foundation of trust. I think we've shown over the last 8 years, we've built a lot of trust, we've built a lot of customers. We continue to hold that trust sacrosanct and make sure that we're not breaching it. We've centered on behavior, not just on transactions. We want to be aligned with our long-term purpose of financial empowerment for everybody. Before I wrap, I might just share one more story with you all. So we were doing a design sprint. I hate to admit how long ago this was now. It's like nearly a year ago. And we're doing this design sprint and we're talking to this customer. It's like the customer, hands up, who've done a design sprint? Yeah, most people. So at least a couple of days, we're talking to customers. And we're talking to this customer and we weren't allowed to lead them to what if we had this feature? What if we had that feature? And off their own back, they described the roundups feature, which is a feature in Booster Savvy as well. But the way that they described it was like, oh, hang on. So the way that I spend, I could maybe make that help benefit me in the future. And I was like, yes. But that's not how you do it. You go, oh, tell me more about that. But, it's one of those moments where I'm biting my tongue for 30 minutes to get this granule. I'd love to tell you that we've, wrapped all this stuff up in a nice bow and put a great story. But reality is we're still working on it. It is what's next, not what is. But yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for your time and attention. That's our talk tonight, everybody. Big round of applause, especially for Will. I'll give to Sahil for wrapping and questions.
Yeah, I guess we'll take questions now from anybody. Yes.
Sorry, I have a question for Will. So you know how you talked about KiwiSaver and the choices. How do you do this within the app so that the customer does not get overwhelmed because, obviously so many choices. And how do you, because KiwiSaver is one of the biggest source of retirement. So yeah, how do you help them through that process?
Do you want to just repeat it online? Sorry, I should have given the mic.
How do we avoid the overwhelm problem with KiwiSaver? I think so. The first thing is because we get this question a lot is people that are expecting. We've got, as John mentioned, 10,000 or so investment options on the Invest platform, and they think we're going to have that many on the KiwiSaver platform, and that's not the case for a raft of reasons. So that does help us not have to deal with the overwhelm of 10,000. We still have 100. I think it's six base funds and about 90 odd self-select instruments. That is going to grow. I think the way that we've designed the sort of investment plan journey and the fund selection journey sort of helps filter out certain things. There are certain ways to filter what you're looking on. Like obviously not everything is the same. We've got a range of ETFs. We've got companies. We've got some cash and bond ETFs. We've got some highly diversified ETFs and so on and so forth. So there are ways to navigate through that. We also do have this, I think I touched on it, this concept of guardrails, which the point of those is to try and ensure appropriate diversification. So it does mean that when you go through that journey, you can't have sort of more than 5% invest in any one individual company. So that does sort of help customers through that journey of identifying what's there, adding it to their investment plan, and then also ensuring that it's not necessarily over investing in something that's potentially too high risk, etc. as well. So there's a lot of, it's in fact the vast majority of our sign up flow is around the fund selection side of things. I think if you strip that out, it's actually sort of about 4 or 5 screens. The remainder of it is largely that fund selection screen or screens.
Any other questions? Yes. I'll give you the mic. So he doesn't have to repeat it.
This is more of maybe a customer question. I'm just curious about the debit card, whether there's going to be a separate account in Sharesies that your money comes from, or can you have, for example, say my salary comes into a S&P 500 ETF getting average 8% return, and then I can spend straight from that, or is that how it's separate?
Well, I feel like a room smaller, but we've got online as well. What do you want?
I want that second option.
The second one, okay, cool. So I won't just build it for you. In our customer research, people want a separation between those two things. So it was and still is, to be honest, a topic of hot debate about whether you do one or the other. So far, we're leaning towards the separation, and we've been building on that basis. That's not to say that we'll never do the thing that you're talking about, but that is to say, probably at least for the launch, which is scheduled for later this year, will be in the separation version of that. But yeah, it's a really interesting one. Out of interest in the room, can I get a show of hands if you want the separated version? No? Oh, come on, be brave if you really want it. And who wants the version 2? Like, your money's invested in a fund. Okay, that's pretty even. I noticed there were a few hands that didn't get raised at all, which I'm thoroughly disappointed in all of you about. Any question?
All right, thank you, John and Will, for the wonderful keynote. I have one question to John, because as a kind of new Kiwi here in New Zealand, I'm more curious about the multi-currency stuff, and I can see that it's turned on. The FX market is arguably the largest market in the world. So I just want to know your strategy, how to dealing with these multiple currency themes. How do you deal with FX fees, etc.? Thank you.
Yep, great question. There's a good reason why we had an aeroplane on that previous slide. So Sharesies today, I don't know if you're a customer, I can't remember if you are. So we operate in 3 currencies. So we operate in USD, AUD, and NZD. The plan is over the next wee while, we'll expand that for spend. Probably we might need to expand it in other areas as well, but certainly for spend. Target probably 8 to 10 currencies would get us 95-ish% coverage of what we're expecting. By the time you've got sort of the top 8 currencies, top 10 currencies. We've got a really great partner for FX. We partner with XE. And so we would look to bring a really great rate similar to what we do for investing over to spend as well. Questions?
Sorry.
All good.
My name is Alona. I'm not sure how to ask this question correctly, but in the payments world, a lot of people are using MasterCard and Visa rails, and we have the domestic network, the FPOS network, and there's conversations about a restructuring, replatforming New Zealand payments network, and as well as conversations about the CBDC, DBC. What is Sharesies' view, and how are you planning to participate in the domestic payment network?
Yep, great question. We do plan to have FPOS access is the short answer to that. For people who don't know, most transactions these days, if you're tapping your card, that's running over the MasterCard or Visa rails. If you're inserting your card, it's going over what we sometimes call domestic routing or FPOS. One of the big things is I would love to support it more, but one of the big things is because that FPOS payment method is so cheap, it's been chronically underinvested in, and so trying to make that really good, I think the experience is continuing to, like the Visa and MasterCard experience is continuing to outpace. We will support FPOS, but it's a pretty tricky one if you make the product free and sort of subsidized by the banks the way it is now, to materially improve the experience. So you'll end up in a situation where we have it works, a domestic network, and a quite good international global network like Visa and MasterCard run. But yeah, it's a really great question. But I think in New Zealand, the model we have, I think, is sort of a user choice model, which is great because it gives people the choice of I can insert my card into my PIN and then I don't get charged the surcharge. The ComCom consultation around that, what I've observed in the last wee while is that there seems to be a softening of the language that they've been using as they've kind of been coming out. They came out very strong initially and said, we want to get rid of surcharges. And then the next time that they said anything, they said, New Zealanders are paying X amount of money in surcharges, and then now they're saying we're considering our options. So it seems like they're sort of changing their stance a little bit. Where Sharesies stands is, we're a fintech. We're quite large now, but we still think about ourselves as a startup. We're only 170-ish people. So size-wise, we're not that big. And so there has to be, for us, there has to be a commercial model in there that works for people at our scale, people who are starting scale, and obviously for banks as well. So it's tricky to get right. But yeah, there's so we did put forward our thoughts into the consultation. I think the public record now, but it was basically that, like, we think you need to support fintech in New Zealand. Make sure, like, we think there needs to be a way for the commercials to work for fintechs, because ultimately we believe fintechs will create value for customers. Customers will benefit.
Question?
Hi, John. Ram from Clutterbot. My question is about the value proposition of Sharesies to business customers, because like value prop to end customer like me is clear, but could you speak a little bit more about business services?
I'll admit I'm not the best to do this, but I can tell you what I know. So we help businesses with equity capital raising. We help businesses with investor relations, so like automated message sending. We help them manage their share register, and we help them through technology partnerships. So you might have seen we partner with Fonterra. So we manage they have a large co-op board of investments that we now manage for them. It used to be under Jardim, and they switched over last year. Yeah, recently. So those are the ways that we're working with businesses. I mean, ultimately, at our core, we're a technology platform, a ledger, and we acquired Orchestra, who's effectively like a private company registry. So all the things that help out with that, helping businesses get access to capital that they need to grow, manage their shareholders, and also if they have actually, Carl can probably speak to this better than I can. I've just seen him in the back there. But yeah, is there a technology partnership? And we continue to work with people about that.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Rachel. You mentioned you've got kids. Just particularly interested sort of in the kid market, teenagers. I've got two. And yeah, just really curious how you guys are tackling that market and how you're looking at kids as consumers, or future customers or future customers.
Yeah, great question. So I have two kids. Will has two kids. I was telling someone earlier, my last product tank was 7 years ago. My eldest is 7 years old, and that's not a coincidence. So I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old now. And so the way that me as a customer, I'll talk about that, we just sock away $20 each for them. And there is an auto invest plan called a kids plan, which is tax advantage specifically built for kids to get those tax advantages. That's what I do. So that is, I suppose, a pretty typical expression of how we support kids. As that relates to spend, probably a question mark for me at the moment about how that works. But I will say that, we have, I think it's Carl, correct me, I think our kids customer base in New Zealand is like 8% of our total. If that. Smaller. Okay. So yeah, we have an offering for kids. The way that it works is it's managed by the parent or guardian. We call them well-meaning adults. So that might be like a grandparent or an auntie or an uncle who's socking away money into something for them. And you know what? My kids are outdoing me in terms of the investing game. So maybe I should take a note from them.
Probably just add to that as well. kids accounts is interesting. It's consistently, so we get a whole bunch of customer research or customer insights from our existing KiwiSaver member base. We probably speak to customers daily, as well as sort of a more periodic, larger research we do. And consistently, kids accounts is in the top 5 most requested features. And to that point about we can do anything, but we can't do everything, it's just one of the things. There's a few very specific build dimensions we need to consider for kids accounts and how it works in the Sharesies app that we haven't got to solving yet. But consistently asked for by our members. It's not a huge value prop there at the moment in terms of like the government contribution and employer contributions they don't apply in that situation. But yeah, it's absolutely something that is definitely desired, and there's a lot of people that, from what I can tell, customers that are asking for it that are wanting to give their kids the opportunity and get them established, so that, particularly in the KiwiSaver space, when they get to 18 and they are working, they're not forced with a decision or a boss that's suggesting they can potentially have an extra 5% and not go into KiwiSaver. It's already established and it just rolls straight in, would be one of those use cases.
And there was a question over there. I saw a hand go up.
We'll take final 2. It's getting 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Hey, it's Lockie here. I guess my question is more around like attention and like churn metrics, essentially. Like, how do you keep customers, and especially with something like a KiwiSaver product, my knowledge is you can just switch KiwiSavers whenever you want. So I'm interested in how you think about retaining customers and what does your churn actually look like?
For now, we're very much in the growth space, and I think our attention strategy at the moment is ensuring that the experience is strong enough and compelling enough to retain, and that the support and service that we provide is enough as well. So that's probably like our primary focus at the moment. We know that that will become more of a focus elsewhere, but at the moment, we kind of monitor it, and I think our attention metrics at the moment, we're certainly below industry average in terms of the number of people that transfer. We do monitor things like short-term volatility is one that, when you change KiwiSaver schemes, you basically start with a 0%. So if you have a scheme for 10 years and you go down 10%, you might not see it because 90 to 80 isn't that much of a concern, but 0 to -10 maybe is more. So there are definitely some things that we're kicking around in terms of the product experience and education and support, things like that. But it's more of a monitoring strategy whilst relying on the strength of the experience itself at the moment.
TV doing itself off. Sorry.
Energy savings.
Thank you. You can go first. Sorry.
Hello, I'm Nina. I'm a graduate product designer. I'm not sure who this question is for, but kind of like on the flip side of wanting to invest for children, I kind of wanted to flip that around, because my parents are immigrants and I kind of wanted to get them into investing as well. I think they kind of know what it means because they started a kids KiwiSaver for me. I kind of wanted to just ask, I don't know if this is financial advice, but how do I kind of like convince them to start investing as well?
How do you convince your parents to do anything? I don't know if you know my mum, but it's not through telling her to do something. I'll give you that much advice. I don't know. It depends on them. Like if they're open and willing to hear advice and maybe sharing your experience and sort of mentioning, you've got X amount of time. Over that time, the market has done X or Y. Maybe that's a good starting point for them to get the sort of brain moving on it. That would be my approach. I think about my mum and what we're trying to achieve with her and retire her. I've had this conversation, and the blunt, like, you need to be doing this, did not work. She bounced straight off of it. So I would not use that approach. Your parents might be different. They might not be as obstinate as she is. You any thoughts?
It's a similar situation with my mum. But I think typically with that sort of getting started stuff, I mean, I can't tell. There are certain people in my life, God, my mum's going to see this. My sister's probably watching. I can't tell them what to do. They have to see it for themselves. And I think with investing, in my experiences and how I started, and my wife started as well, was very much a case of you only see the value once you're doing it. It's very hard to have it explained and get it off the bat. You're taking a leap of faith in that case. So yeah, for me, it was always about take a number, a nominal number that you can live without, $5, whatever it is, and just see how that goes, and come back and look at it over time. And then that's when you can truly start to understand and see the value proposition. And I think once that value proposition is understood, then it becomes a much simpler step, rather than, it's very hard to tell someone and have them convinced.
I think there was one final question. Do you have a question, or?
Hi, my name's Grant. I'm a Curious product manager. Excellent presentation, guys. Will, you mentioned earlier that, which is awesome, you do regular daily product discovery with your customers, in addition to like blending that with traditional research. How do you go about approaching that within your squads? And has that evolved, and how have you got better with it?
Competitor research.
Well, Matt made it a competition, was the simple answer. I think it's sort of, so we obviously started doing before we had any customers, we were doing those periodic, larger, costly, time expensive types of research. We do still do those periodically in a number of different formats. And we've got a couple of other sort of streams of touch points, and one of them is the new, we call most new members, and it's sort of distributed throughout the team. There are some people that take the competition more seriously and try and get those numbers up. I think someone even changed the system so that the numbers would zero or something. I don't know. So, but yeah, that's a really good opportunity for us, and it does tie in a little bit to our retention. It is probably the one contact point we've got around retention. So it gives us an opportunity to introduce ourselves to our customers, because sometimes everybody's diverse. Some people want to talk, some people don't. Some people want to understand a little bit more, whatever. But it also gives us regular real-time feedback on how people are interpreting things. Lots of interesting conversations around Liberation Day, when things were going up and down almost daily. And then we also have obviously feedback coming in through intercom, through customer contacts that are not necessarily from people that have just joined in the first 30 days. So we kind of have a couple of different slices, some from existing members, some from customers in their first, let's say, 30 to 90 days. And that's sort of low effort throughout the team that we sort of distribute and manage. And then, we do have that. We kind of supplement that with our broader analytics, and then our more costly time intensive research as well. So it gives us a constant stream, if you like, of what the sentiment is and what new insights there are.
Awesome. I had a bonus question. Sorry. I guess looking back at your journey, it kind of all makes sense. The steps that you've taken from like Now, Spend, and KiwiSaver to simple investing. How much of that has been sort of bubbling away for years before it's made its way to products? Or have they been sort of just opportunistic? You saw something that could be done now, given you've solved some problems already. So maybe a combo.
Do you want to start?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably pretty easy. I think, as I said, sort of during the chat, KiwiSaver was always in the plans. I've heard a rumor, I don't know if it was true or not, that it was almost even one of the first things that Sharesies was potentially going to do. And this is well before my time. I was probably still lounging around in Europe somewhere. But and one of the early marketing managers was actually hired, I think, to lead a bunch of research into KiwiSaver and start to get that stood up. So yeah, for us, that was always in the workings somewhere. It's more about the features within that are the ones that are babbling around.
Yeah, poor Matt couldn't actually put his job title on LinkedIn for how many years, Matt? Year and a half, because it said the word KiwiSaver in it. So
loving it.
Or superannuation, and he was working at Sharesies. I mean, we're a founder-led company, and very lucky to be so. We've got 6 people who are very passionate about the purpose And I think in their mind, they're always challenging us, and they're always thinking like they've had this grand plan laid out for a very long time. And I think at times they might get frustrated because they're like, at this point, we should have had this. At that point, we should have had that. And I don't, I empathize with that. I don't hold that against them. I work with other founders as well in previous roles, and the way that it's been delivered has been pretty different. But I think our founders were very lucky. They certainly make expectations clear, but they also understand where we're at, our capabilities, how much we're investing, and just try to really push where we're at. So yeah, I think there's probably 10 more products after this that I'm not aware of that they are.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing. Did you have a product management role that you wanted to talk about while you've got product managers? Are you hiring currently? No? I thought I saw an ad, but no.
Amy, do we have any?
I think we're hiring for a product manager in the B2B team. I think we're looking for a cover for Redmond. But that's the extent of what I know. Product manager, working with our business-to-business team. So doing the stuff that we talked about earlier, working with the teams, doing all the company partnerships around employee share schemes and Sharesies open, so helping businesses connect with their investors and prioritizing some of our technology, all of that stuff.
There you have it. So if you are looking for a role, or if you know anybody else and want to work at this incredible company, then yeah, apply for the role. I've got just backwards going that way. A few more slides. Product Aotearoa conference is coming. We've had 2 of those and they've been incredible. It will be happening in October or November in Auckland. And there'll be 2 days, lots of speakers. In fact, we've had all of these amazing people present at our conferences in the past 2 years, including international speakers and lots of really amazing local people that have spoken as well. From stories about how to do incredible product work to bring prisoners and change their lives, to what does AI sort of augmented game development look like. So lots of really incredible stories from the trenches, and there'll be plenty more. And we need your help. So we're looking for speakers. And if you're looking to pre-register, please sign up to the form as well. We've got lots of people signing up already. So yeah, sign up to that form to get early. Yeah, when the tickets go live, you'll get an email. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much again, Sharesies, for hosting, and thank you guys for speaking and spending all your time.
Also, just a big thank you to Sahil for organising everything. It was super easy for Will and I. We just had to make sure that we were here and had a talk. So hands together for Sahil.
Mingle, have drinks, network. There's pizza as well. Awesome. Thanks, team.